Welcome to the S2 Cognition Podcast. S2 is the official cognitive evaluation in sports, from youth to pro, where athletes and coaches build to win.
Welcome to the S2 Cognition Podcast. I'm your host, Harrison Hunter, and today Scott and I are joined by former NHL and professional hockey player Ľuboš Bartečko. He shares his personal journey of discovering cognitive testing and how it's transformed his coaching approach, allowing him to better understand his players' strengths and inconsistencies. The discussion also touches on the importance of adapting coaching methods to individual players, the role of parents in athlete development, and the distinction between physical speed and play speed. We wrap up the conversation by discussing how understanding a player's unique cognitive profile can enhance their performance and decision-making on the ice. For those that are new here, welcome. We're excited to have you today, and those that are returning listeners, we always appreciate your support. To help us continue our growth, we ask that you subscribe, rate, and review our show. Thanks again to Ľuboš for taking the time to join us. Hope you enjoy. Ľuboš Bartečko, thank you so much for joining us today. Former NHL and professional hockey player of 21 years. Today we're going to cover all things hockey, S2, your experience, but I want to start there. Your experience with utilizing, you were introduced to us a few months ago. You and your son took the evaluation. I just want to start with your experience to give the listener feedback for what you thought. Just the whole thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, my experience is a very interesting story because, I'm a guy that played professionally for so long, and I've always wanted to, you always wanted to get better every day, every week, every year. Along the side, you make mistakes, but at the same time, you want to, get better at everything. So you start with the physical, right? Sport is physical, and you do the testing, or a lot of people are forgetting about the sport is, not as much as physical, but as much as the mental part, and then the brain, because brain controls everything, right? So, the funny part is that alongside the entire my, career, we always had the testing, right? The physical. So are you going to be able to do if you're going to do 25 pull-ups, you're great. You're going to do 200-pound bench. Oh my gosh, he's unbelievable. But then comes down to the game, and it's a different story, right? So along the time of the times it was going on, then, always new things are coming out. And then when I retired and I started coaching, I dived into, helping young athletes, and me being, athlete, I wanted to stay in that game. So I started, helping young athletes and training them, right? And coaching and all that stuff. But it was not always enough, as you always want to be better at something, and, always finding new ways. And then after, all these years I was coaching, and I moved back here, you meet people, you always, get into new areas, new things. And, one of the things that, it started, the force plates, and then, on and on. And then all of a sudden, I got introduced to S2. I had no idea what it was, right? It's just okay, cognitive, I know what it is, but how is that going to help me? So I everything what I do, I wanted to understand it. So I'm absolutely, I want to get into it, right? So I came here, and it's just I always like to listen smarter people than I am, right? So things that, I don't understand, I want to understand it, but how do you understand it? By, learning and listening to smarter people who knows what they're doing. So, and this is what happened. Actually, I came here and I was blown away, the way the cognitive testing was explained to me and what it is. And they're and I was okay. And okay, we're just going to take tests and see what it is. I wanted to see because, first thing was, if you take the cognitive testing, there's so many factors in the brain that, it's going to get to you, and then it actually can define your game, what you're good at. How do you process the game? Because the game is so fast. The game, changes, directions real fast. And how can you process that? And how's your brain working? I don't know. I just see it. So it's just but if you are able to recognize that and test it, that way you can, see where you're at. And, one of the things was for me, it was okay, I think I was good at this. And, my whole career is funny that when we were talking, it's just we can actually, see how your brain is working, and we can actually see where your position would be the best suited for your brain, how your brain works, and like how you can actually process things. So that way your coach or whoever, is in charge of you can actually use you the best way you can, use your to your abilities. It's not just physical. It's like you can run fast, but can you process that speed the way that and then how do you process that feed? Can you see the game? Can you see it only in the tunnel vision? And can you see it in 180 degrees? Can you recognize the patterns? I was blown away when, I was just seeing it. And then, the funny thing is that the entire career, you think for me, it was like, I want to be the goal scorer. I want to be, scoring goals and all that stuff. And that, like all of our focus in hockey and, is like, if you score goals, like, you're going to be, the best. Yeah, you're going to make the most money, but not everyone can do that. Some, like everyone have a role. Everyone, brain process differently. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to take the test and I'm going to see. So we took the test and then we were sitting and talking and like, I'm just looking. It's like, the entire career I was focusing on a different thing. I should have been focused on, because, based on my testing, I should have been focusing more on the defensive part because I could process that a lot better. I can recognize the patterns. I can do all that. Like, even though I was playing forward, I would have been better, defensive forward. And, beginning of my career, I was focusing on like scoring goals. And then after that, I was, when I left NHL, I came to Europe, I was, getting into more penalty killers and I became penalty killer for national team. I was doing all that. And that's where all of my success was coming, towards my end of the career.
So it took how long? You figured it out, but it took you how long to figure it out?
Correct. But I had no idea, right? So, and then I was like, okay, I'm pretty good at that. So like, now I'm looking at that and, I was just like, okay, this is, what my strengths are. So like, I wish I would have known that 25 years ago so I can kind of shape, my attention to my game and focus on the things that I'm very good at, right? So it was very interesting. And then, of course, me being the coach, I'm like, okay, so I want to see what, all my players are. So I started talking to my players and I'm like, okay, we have the opportunity. So, a couple of players here, just like, okay, we're going to take it. So they took the test and same thing, right? So like I'm looking at the player now from a different perspective because I'm the coach and I expect that player to do something that he's not able to perform, right? So like now I'm putting him in a position where he could be successful. So I'm not putting him in a position where like, okay, he wants to be on a power play, but you're not able to do that. But you're going to be really good on defensive, killing the penalties. You're going to be good at that. So this is where you're going to be, that's your role is going to be. And that's changed his whole perspective of the player as well, because he understands now, okay, this is what I'm good at. So I'm going to use that towards my, advantage, not I want to be somebody else. And this is the problem in youth sports. Like people and players are always wanting to be somebody else. And they sometimes need to figure it out and find out. And today's technology and, everything else, it needs to be put out there. And the coaches needs to understand like, okay, this is going to help me as a coach because I can, build my team based on that. And, I can see those players and the way I talk to them because like, okay, if he's not able to understand that part of the game and I expect him to do that and he's not understanding that there's no way I can do like that's how his brain works, right? So like those are the things that were very, very new to me and I'm starting to understand and this is why we're doing this. This is why I love cognitive testing and this is why we're here. So like we're, my organization that we have, we're going to continue to work with that and we're going to, build athletes because that's what's going to separate those guys from, everyone else. If you put that extra 1% and those tools that we have, they're going to only help. So I'm very excited about that because it just, it just puts another tool to my toolbox that I can use. And I'm here to help the young players. And a lot of that, they don't see that way. They don't see that opportunity, and they're driven by their parents and driven by their coaches and misunderstanding, where they are and what they need to be. So
Are you seeing benefits already?
Oh my gosh, it's
putting
huge.
Kids in different positions, or the way you interact with them, the way you instruct them, because hey, I can't expect this kid's not going to pick up on this as quickly. What kind of benefits and impact are you seeing in the time you've been implementing?
So this is very interesting because the benefits that I've seen is just like, now I see the kid that I'm he's on my team, and then he's on my squad that we train, and then he's on my development program. And now the drills that we're doing, I can actually modify that towards his health, because like you can, train the brain as well. It's not the physical, because, anybody can teach, anyone run fast, like in a straight line, right? You don't think about anything. So like all you got to do is just get to the gym and, do all these things. But when you're playing hockey and you have, 5 players and you have to change direction, you have to recognize those patterns. That's not easy. So, yes. But you can train that, right? And then if I see based on the testing that the kid only has, like, for example, I have a kid that, he is struggling when he's surrounded with, he's in a corner, for example, he's got the puck, and then I can see that in the game now. And I was like always looking at it, like, what are you doing when he's in a corner? And then there's one player from the other team come in and the other player, so he gets surrounded with all these guys. That's where he's struggling, and he's like panicking, and he doesn't know what to do because his brain, yes, because his brain, so like now we're working on things that, okay, you got to get out of that situation. You cannot get into that. You cannot stand still. You have to find those ways. And then we're training that, right? And same thing with like my son who took the testing as well. So we're looking at it. It was very funny that Kyle, was like, he sent it to me and he's like, man, he's your son. I'm like, I hope so. Because the test was identical, right? So like he's got the same abilities as me. And, one of the things was that he can focus on, thing that, a task. So like when coach is telling him task, like you got to focus on that. If you start, going out of that, then you're like screwed, right? So like he's very good at focusing. So like, one of the things I was telling you, like, well, you always want to play. If you're playing for a coach, he wants you to do one thing. You don't want to be going and trying to do your own thing. So like, if you start listening and then focusing on that, you're going to be really, really good. And that's just one of the things. And then also like, there's things that, he's got really good, the 180, the spatial memory vision. So like, that's very good. He can see plays like, so it's good. And, so all these things, I just kind of slowly, and he was looking at it and then he started like, okay, it's very interesting. So now, it helped him as well. And then when he's coming back, because he came here for Christmas, so I didn't really have a chance to, work with a lot, but I'm very excited for the summer when he's coming, start working on all those things. So, those are the benefits of the cognitive, that I was able to use that kid in a situation that he's successful, right? So I'm not going to put him in a situation and expect him to be good at that if he cannot even process that. So like, why would I even do that? But at the same time, I know that when he's in that situation, my approach to him is going to be different than just like, okay, what are you doing? You know what I mean? So those are the benefits that really changes the coaching perspective. If you know every kid, what their brain is doing, I mean, it's just going to be, and this is what we're going to do this year, that we're going to try to get as many kids as possible from my junior team and my youth team to commit to this, so we can kind of see, and then, where everyone else is, and we can help those kids to grow.
I want to come back to the development and the positional considerations here in a moment, but let's take your coaching hat off. It's interesting. We spent the first 8 minutes of the podcast you talking about, man, I try to do this, I try to do this, I try to do this, and later in my career I found I could do this. Can you take your coaching hat off and put your parenting hat on for a minute and think about your son and how, man, him being the certain age that he is earlier than what you got this information at, how is that going to shape how you view and train how he's going to develop into the player he knows, he's going to have to develop into to be a successful player?
Right. For me now, it's going to be changing the parenting view as well. Like I changed my parenting because, to him, when he started playing hockey, I was still active playing, and it's just like, so my view was like, I always was expecting, even when he was younger, expecting him to be a pro, right? And that was, for me, it was like, now I'm going back, I was like very frustrated about things that he was doing, right? And I'm like, now looking back, and it's like, well, he was a kid, he was developing, and I don't even know what, his like how his brain is thinking, how he was doing. So like, but after a few, years of me coaching him, being very, very hard on him, I find a way to like, okay, I need to shift my approach to him, and I need to start being a parent more than a coach when he was, already gone. But now as a parent, and understanding how his brain works, I'm just going to shift my, my attention to what his strengths are, and I'm going to use that and then help him in his development and his training to be even better than what he was, right? Because now, before that, I was just guessing. Yeah, he's my son, oh yeah, he's great stick handler, he's great this. And I'm just like, oh, I think he could be this. So now the guessing part is going away, and I'm focusing on the stuff that his brain is thinking, how he's, where's physical, like how he's like, what position and what we need to work on. And now we're going to be, I'm not going to be guessing anymore. I'm just going to be like, okay, I'm going to focus on that, and I'm going to help him grow to be better at what he should be or what position. So this is going to be huge for me. And, seeing his results is pretty much the same thing as mine. So that's going to make it easier for me. So the way I think, I'm thinking now he's thinking, right? So that's going to just help a lot. But I think understanding the process of brain, because, now I'm starting to understand more from like a parent perspective, not, like that I know already how the brain works, but like how this can help my son and my coaching, and all these kids help to, be better at their career. This is huge because, everyone wants to get to the next level. Mm-hmm. But a lot of parents, a lot of coaches don't understand like what that level is, because like if I'm at this level, I cannot jump 2 or 3 levels right away, right? And this is what the kids are doing. And if I can focus on the things that I need to be focused and be patient and knowing what I can do, how my brain works, what my capabilities are, then I could become better at that to, move to the next level. And this part, the cognitive testing, is huge. To me, it's probably one of the most important things to get before you even start training. Because, anybody can get you fast. Like I said, anybody can get you, like in the gym, and it's like, yeah, do the, 20 push-ups, do, whatever the workouts. I can get you big, no problem, without even thinking, right? But playing the game, whatever game you're doing. So like we're talking about hockey. Now we go, football. I mean, that game is super fast, and you have like 300-pound people coming at you. So like if you're not really seeing the game and you're put in a position where you're not supposed to be, you're going to get killed, right? I'm not understanding the football, but like that career could be over for you, because those guys going to literally run you over, and you can get hurt really badly, right? So those are another things that we're looking at. The cognitive testing is that could basically, help you stay healthy, because if you're healthy, you're playing the game. If you're injured, you're not. So like all these things, they just, people have to understand, why is this helping me? And then, if this part is not that expensive, if we're looking at it, right? And that could potentially help you make a lot of money. So, like, why not?
So I was going to say about parenting. I think it's a great question, right? Because you're a coach and you're a parent. And whether you're a coach or a parent, you're always looking for those hooks to instill confidence in athletes, right? I got a 14-year-old knucklehead at home who plays sports, and you just see wrestling with confidence and wrestling. You want to humble confidence is the term I use in my household, but at every level, collegiate level, professional level, instilling confidence, right? Because doubt was such a demanding human performance challenge. Doubt can creep in very quickly, very easily. And it's interesting to hear you talk about how this is another set of hooks as a parent, as a coach, to understand your athlete and to instill some confidence. Hey, you've got really good trajectory prediction skills, so you should be able to have good strike zone understanding, good discipline. You should be able to intercept pucks coming at you at the right angle. You have that ability to do this. That could be really inspiring and really unleash some confidence and allow that to be fully expressed and overcome some doubt. And then having an understanding of why a kid who's worked so hard on the physical, on the technical skills, is still struggling in the game, that's defeating. I mean, that can wear you down. But now having an understanding of why and being able to start thinking about what to do about it, what to work on, at a young age, you're starting to channel kids to be solution-oriented and play with more confidence, lean into their strengths, accept, which we kind of went away from that for a while, right? Talking about any of your weaknesses, right? Giving everyone trophies under every situation. Yeah. And now we're leaning back into, hey, part of being a successful athlete is understanding what you struggle with and then working towards solutions. So, and that's not just kids, it's just at every level, instilling confidence. This can unlock what arguably is, as I'm listening to you, could be one of the most frustrating aspects of the game, is the decision making, the mental mistakes that you make. That can wear you down just as much as injuries, I would think.
Oh yeah, I hear it all the time. We hear it as a coaches all the time. Like, parents come in and they're like, my kid is struggling right now with confidence. Mm-hmm. They don't understand, but why is he struggling with confidence? What is the problem? Because there's something that is stopping or blocking that brain for that kid to perform those tasks, right? So I have a couple of kids, I have, parents coming in and it's just like, they're saying, like, right now he's struggling with confidence. He's doing that and he just can't score, can't do anything. And then I'm looking at the kid and I'm looking at the cognitive testing, right? I'm looking at that and I'm like, this is the problem in my mind, right? Because again, like I was talking before, when he gets to the positions where he gets surrounded with so many players, that's the problem. So like we started working with that, hey, maybe you should be not going to there, like stay away from the corner. Instead of going in the corner, go into positions where you're not surrounded with 25 players, you know what I mean? So like, and then how do you get back, that confident? Well, putting him in the positions that he's going to be successful. So like we as a coaches have to understand what are his strengths and, and weaknesses. And those are the things that we can actually eliminate and shorten that, because everyone goes through slumps, right? Every pro athlete goes through slump that, you have, but the best ones at the highest level, the slumps are very short because they are able to overcome that mentally. And then we're going back again into, it's not because they're not physically ready. It's not because they're not in the condition, because they don't know how to score. It's the mental part that blocks them from being able to score, the goals. And this is all about the cognitive stuff. So like, why not have that understanding as a parent, as a player? And player, for me, that's very important to understand what is going on with my brain, because if I'm going through those things, I'm able to overcome that very, very quickly. And this is just huge for me as an athlete, right? And again, we're talking about no matter what the league is, no matter what the level is, like this is something that it's very important for you, because again, it's about you and how well you're going to perform anywhere, and you want to be the best at what you do, right? And you want to be the best you can be. So this is why I love this. This is why I love the cognitive stuff, and I'm going to be getting involved a lot more with that. So it's very, very helpful for me and for all the athletes. It's not just for me, but like I look at it as like I want to help the athlete that comes into my door and wants help. Yeah. And these are the things I always keep telling them, like, okay, this is something that you should be looking at and you should be able to do. So you can be better. I can help you better, because if I'm looking at you, I'm just guessing. What do you really need, right? Yeah. We want to put that guessing part away from the game.
Let's remove it. We have the answers to it. Let's help, let's assist, and let's be one tool in your tool belt that is trying to make this player successful. we probably need to do an episode on this, but the difference, because we talk about this all the time with coaches. We just hear this over and over and over. There's physical speed. There's physical explosiveness. There's all these metrics to show how good of an athlete you are. And then there's game speed, and there's play speed, as we call it. They're different for some players. Some players are not as physically gifted, and yet their play speed. Oh, he gets back in position better than any. He's always in the right spot. He can't do this explosively, but man, he always fills that gap, or he's able to get around guys, or he knows what move to counteract when he's skating around. We probably just need to do an episode on physical speed versus play speed. But can you really get into some of the definitional understanding of why is there a difference, and what are we seeing?
Your body, I mean, just to use a silly car example, I mean, you played in the NHL. I mean, you're driving a Maserati, Lamborghini, right? Your body has been at the pinnacle, right? But you still got a driver. That's the brain. I mean, you got to be able to express those physical gifts by being able to anticipate, see, maintain awareness, and all that is brain. And so you've seen guys who just were beasts physically, athletically, who just, you put them on the ice at the highest level and they were overwhelmed. And then you've seen guys who just, maybe weren't driving the Lamborghini, but they just were executing with an incredible awareness and compensated for that, to your point, Harrison. So the cognitive processing speed mixed with the physical athletic speed and gifts, there's an equation there. It's a complicated model, but there's an equation there. Cognitive speed plus physical speed equals your play speed. And, you can have one or the other, and one is going to compensate a little bit. But when you've got both operating, I mean, and you're really unlocking athletic prowess when you can move fast, physically execute, be dynamic in your acceleration, deceleration, and then you've got a brain that knows how to drive that car on any track with incredible speed, precision. I mean, think about your decision to stop on the ice. We see the physical expression of stopping.
Yeah, right.
But the brain decides when to stop and when to redirect. And so you've got to have both working together. The brain is telling the body when, where, and how to react. And to your comment earlier, your brain is your central command center. It's taking in all the information from your senses and making sense of it, determining what's relevant in sub-second, sub-half-second, sub-quarter of a second sometimes, time frames, and then sending commands out to your body to adapt and adjust and redirect. I mean, it's the brain and the body working together to create what we see, which is play speed.
I think it's funny. I think about the player you're talking about who gets caught in the corner. And he could be the fastest kid on your team, but if he gets caught in the corner, it doesn't do him a whole lot of good, right? So how do we teach him to anticipate, if I'm going to go here, I have to look for an outlet now. Or if I get caught, immediately turn or just flick that sucker and get it out of here. What are the alternatives? That's how we start talking about this play speed aspect. He could be the fastest, but if he's slow in perception speed and decision and improvisation, if he gets caught and he gets rigid, how do we help put him in those situations? This is what you were talking about earlier. How has the evaluation helped you understand positional? Because you talked about this from the jump, about you and seeing the example in first person of, man, my positional considerations, what I tried to be versus what I should have been. How have you seen that in some of your teams at the ages that you're coaching?
So this is a great example. It's like, a lot of players, when they come to, practice, when they come to the games, everyone's driven by the social media, right? And the internet. And they're all have their heroes. They want to be McDavid. They want to be Ovechkin. They want to be all these guys. But nobody understands, you cannot be McDavid. You cannot be Ovechkin, you cannot be, so-and-so. You can only be Ľuboš. And what you can do is very, very different what, this guy's doing. So there's a lot of misunderstanding and misleading information about, okay, if you want to skate like McDavid, do these exercises. But when McDavid skates, he's processing the game completely different than everyone. Like, there's nobody else who can do that at that speed. And this is like, I would love to see him, for example, we're talking about him, what his cognitive
Me too.
testing. So you can actually see like, yeah, well, this guy's right there.
Give him a call. We'll test him for nothing. We'll test him for nothing.
We're at 104.
Right. So, that goes to this, that goes to this thing where like, okay, if me as a coach, I understand what he's doing, what he's cannot do, like I'll try to, because game is a game of muscle memory, right? And hockey is a game of patterns. Like every hockey player has the same patterns, same routes. And it's a muscle memory because it happens very, very quickly. So there's no way that I can tell you on the bench, hey, you're forward right now, but you're going to play defenseman and you're going to take, and then, yeah, you can do that, but it's going to take you a lot long to adjust to that game because you're not practicing that. And, you're not in, it's a muscle memory. It's a brain that you're using. So it's like, things like you do over and over and over and over again. And that's how you train your brain, right? So then we go back to the cognitive stuff, right? So this is perfect example. Like you put McDavid into defenseman, he's probably going to be pretty good, but it's going to take him a while to do because he's already like, in an offense mode, right? So those are the things that, you start implementing and practicing. And, I can tell the kid, okay, if you get caught in the game that you're in a corner, well, first thing what you should do is, maybe rim the puck behind the net and there's going to be somebody else and then get away from that instead of trying to dangle or like drop. And so those are the things that, I understand and I can explain to them instead of like, what are you doing? Like you should have been doing, so that's how we can, actually implement that. And then summer is for all these things to get rid of, right? And train and create those patterns and create those muscle memories. So when he gets to the game and that split second decision, when he gets there, it's in his memory that he knows exactly what he's doing. So again, we go back to, he could be fast, he could be, strong, but if he's not put in a position where he's not, his muscle memory, he's not training like that, like he's going to struggle at that. So this is the part where like the brain and training the brain and understanding the brain is very, very important for the coaches. I think this is going to be and I'm pretty sure a lot of, pro teams are already doing that. And, they want to be the best they can be. They want to put those players in the best positions they can, and baseball is no different. I'm sure there's, a lot of baseball stuff because the ball is coming at you real fast and how can you press? So like all these things I'm not even talking about. So like, I think this is, very important for coaches to understand. And I think, if the biggest thing is like we got to educate, coaches and players and parents. Why are we doing that and understanding and those episodes here, talking about it and then listening to it and going from my experience that this really happened. It's not like I came up with this, that's what happened. And, so they have to understand why we're doing this and why is it important for your kid or for your team or for your players to, do those things. If you want to really take your game to the next level, if you just want to be a recreational player, great. Do that, like, play beer league or do whatever. You don't need this.
Yeah.
But I would still do it just because whatever I play, if I play basketball, I want to be best at basketball, even though I'm not a professional player. If I'm playing, golf, I want to be best at golf, even though like I suck at it, right? So understanding all that, like I would definitely do it, whatever it is.
We've got an evaluation for that.
So yeah, so like you always have, and this is what I love about S2 is like they have evaluation for every sport, and then and
they're all tailored to each sport.
Exactly.
One of the themes I'm hearing from you is this fit, this concept of fit. And that's really what it is. One of the buzz terms around hockey now is hockey sense, right? And we have fun with that because we ask, what do you mean by hockey sense? And you get so many different definitions and insights. But I think there is some commonality, right? We're talking about decision making at some level, right? There's certainly a component of this that comes from experience, right? Your understanding of the game toward the end of your career was probably greater than it ever was at the early stage. And that just comes from, the experience and seeing structures and formations and being in different systems and learning body types and styles. And there's something about the accumulation of experience that gives you wisdom, right? And so that's part of hockey sense, is just knowing the game, being able to, you've seen so many patterns and so many ways of doing it, but that's not enough to define hockey sense, because you have to be able to cognitively, to what you've been talking about, process it, see it fast enough, and translate that into action decisions and reactions and counter reactions with incredible speed and precision. So when we talk about hockey sense and fit, it's not whether you have hockey sense or not. It's what is your style of hockey sense? What is your fit? How are you wired to play this game optimally, not just from a physical and athletic and technical standpoint, but from a cognitive standpoint? So hockey sense is going to look different for every athlete, and that's the point you've been making, is that you can't be like a McDavid. You can't be like whoever your favorite player is, because you're wired and built differently. What's your reaction to that kind of thinking about the concept of hockey sense, but the cognitive element of that?
That's really interesting, because, everyone's like, well, he doesn't have a hockey sense, he can't play hockey. He doesn't have a hockey sense, he can't play hockey. But, everyone has a different hockey sense, right? And how do you look at what is the hockey sense, right? So, again, we're going back to the vision, right? Like, the hockey sense is like how you see the game, how you process the game, and how you execute the game, right? So, not everyone can be playmaker, making the good passes, because I cannot see all five players at the same. So, I can only see straight, right? So, if my vision is not 180, because if I have the puck here, I don't see that guy, I don't see that guy, I don't see that guy, I only see this guy, and I only see the net. So what am I going to do? I'm going to take that puck and I'm going to go right there.
That's right.
But that guy's open, and then the coach is like, why didn't you pass it? He's got no hockey sense. He doesn't pass the puck. Yeah. Well, he cannot see that.
Yeah.
And people don't know that, right? So we come back to that, right? And everything, physically you can train that. You go to the gym, you train. Well, brain, you can train as well. So you have to train that, right? So we always talk about everyone's playing hockey, right? So you should be doing multiple sports and stuff like that, but we can talk about that later. But you have to train the game to play the game, and you have to figure it out. What is your strength, right? And then some players can't figure it out. Well, this is exactly cognitive testing will figure it out for you, and then you can okay, this is why I cannot see this player, because I just can't process. So okay, let's focus on how am I gonna improve that. So train that, right? And then you train, and then you get better at whatever it is. So this is very interesting, and this goes back to okay, if you want to be McDavid, you do this. No, that's not how it is, because you cannot be that, right? So you always want to be best version of yourself and what you can do, right? So you have to look at it, okay, how can I improve? And not everyone can process the game at the highest level. Not everyone can be, processing, everything at the highest level. So there's always levels, right? So that's why we're having NHL. That's why we're having American Hockey League. That's why we're having East Coast Hockey League, and on and on. Because if you're not there, then you're going to be put in the lower level. So how can I improve, and how can be better? Well, there are different ways to do that. Not just I need to be stronger, but everything comes from the brain, right? So I need to improve my hockey sense. So, but maybe my hockey sense is a little bit different than the guy next to me. So
there is truth to the idea, though. I mean, there are brains out there that can process at a high level in multiple ways, multiple domains, multiple cognitive skills are operating, at a high level. that doesn't guarantee you're going to be a great hockey player, because you still have to hook it up to the game of hockey. You still have to sharpen and express that and apply that in the game. What does a lot of high-level S2 cognitive skills do for you? Well, it gives your brain the flexibility and the adaptability when things are happening the fastest and changing the most dynamically. That's what a lot of high-level cognitive skills does. It equips you to be able to adapt and handle the fastest, most complicated aspects of the game. And so it's not surprising across sports, the players playing at the highest level are yoked with more high-level cognitive skills on the whole, right? They're not all high in everything, right? Everyone has a couple areas that they struggle with, right? So, but not surprising, your profile, a lot of high cognitive skills, couple areas that you looked at and went, yeah, okay, I can see that got me in trouble at times, or that led to my positional, but it's not surprising. I mean, the best of the best are wired differently. You don't have to have a perfect cognitive profile. Nobody does. But it gives you adaptability. I want to ask you a question, though, before we wrap up. You've been exposed to these cognitive concepts, right? I think we had a conversation where all these terms, the way we label the terms might have been a little unfamiliar, but the concepts were totally familiar to you. You picked them up as quick as any coach we've ever worked with or former player. They all made sense to you because you could apply them to the game. How has this unleashing or unlocking kind of these cognitive processes and being able to tease them apart and in your athletes, how has that impacted your creativity in terms of drill development and thinking about concepts? Has this given you a new approach and angle and really spurned some innovative ways to train these things?
I see the wheels moving.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, it's very, because, like you as a coaches are always focusing on one thing, right? They want to have their team win the games, right? And you want to get your players to be the strongest, the fastest, but it's not always like, now I'm thinking, going back to cognitive stuff, like everyone's wired differently, right? So like, sometimes, if you look at the best players, how they process the game, how they do things, you look at Tom Brady, he's always, been at his best shape of his life. Is he very muscular? Is he very, like he's really good, in really good shape because, he knows how to train, and then, he knows how to use all that to his advantage. And one of the things is, how he processes things and how he, like how he does things. So like for me, it's been very interesting to see the players that we had under the cognitive testing that, we had, and they're training with me, and they're like, it's really interesting to see like how my approach to them is a little bit different than what it was. Finding ways to kind of accommodate the problems, quote unquote, you say, that you want to be focusing on, and the good stuff that they do, making them better. So the approach to them is very different now from my perspective as a coach than it was before, because I understand their weaknesses and I understand their strengths. So I'm looking at that from a different perspective. And that way, those players started to understand a little bit different, because if the player doesn't know or cannot process that, and then I'm bashing on him, like, hey, you should, and he doesn't know, then that's where also comes to the fact that we're talking about confidence. The coaches are, pushing that player down because it's not necessarily his fault, but it's just like he cannot process that. So like I should be approaching him a little bit different and boost the confidence. And this tool, it's a tool, right? So like it's not gonna make you NHL player. If you're gonna take that and your test is gonna be the best, and you're gonna come here, it's like I'm going to the NHL. That's not how it's gonna happen. That's just for the kid, for the player, for the coach, it's a tool that he can use to make him a better hockey player, to make him better basketball, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, there's so many other factors that comes to being professional athlete and all that. But this part is very, very important. And this is like we're talking about you know, like you read all the books, like 1% better. This is the 1% that's going to put you, because in a position where if you're at the NHL level, people don't understand, like, and especially parents when they're, you know, young, when they have young athletes, like when you have young athletes, there's millions of players and everyone's like, you know, they're kids. When you get to the highest level, the difference of making that level is literally 1%, right? And what is the difference? Everyone's good there.
Yep.
Everyone's great. We're in the same level, but that difference, that understanding, well, how my brain works, how I am going to put myself in a position where I can be better than my buddy next to me because I can process that better. That's what's going to make you take that job. That's what's going to make you keep that job, right? So like at that level, everyone's great. And if you have those tools that you can use towards your advantage, why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. It sounds like we have homework, though. It sounds like this summer you're really going to hit this development and the strategic thinking of drills and decision making and implementation. So here's our homework. Let's let you ride that sucker out all summer, and then we'll have you back on, and we'll dive into this development package that you've worked through in decision making.
I know Ľuboš has been designing drills and developing concepts.
I know we didn't even get to it. We got to have a whole nother episode, and we're going to just dive into what you've been seeing, how your players have developed.
If
I already started. As a matter of fact, I already started using that, and I could see exactly, like, you know, in my gym we have like shooting lane and stuff. So I was like just kind of like playing around with that, you know, just how can we? And it was very interesting to see that we're talking about that, and he was exactly, that player was exactly where he was, like with that cognitive testing, right? So like the bubble that he was, you know, and then the decision making and the patterns that he was supposed to go when he goes from 0 and then he looks, and then all of a sudden, you know, I gave him a pattern that, like we were talking about it, like he was facing the other direction, and I had cones spread out different colors, and I told him, okay, you're gonna turn around, and then he didn't know where the cones were, right? You're gonna go from blue to red to yellow, and you're gonna go around them, and then you're gonna shoot, right? So just to recognizing that, like when you turn from not knowing where that is, you turn and you're starting going through, and then like he turned first time, and he's like, stop. It's like it took him a minute to process. And then in hockey, that decision, you're creating a turnover because you already, right? So this is the stuff. It was just like I was just playing around and just trying to, you know, see, and it was exactly okay. Well, I know exactly where we're going, and then, you know, then you go take that on the ice, right? And then you have, you know, and I had moving players, right? I had moving, and then he had like I was calling a name. It's like, okay, you got to pass the puck to this guy, and then he's like, okay. So it was very good to see, like, okay, that's what we have. So now we have, you know, to work on things like this, and you know, to help the player to make those decisions and to be better at what he is. And, you know, we're talking back about the confidence. The confidence is a key. If you don't have a confidence, if you're not confident to perform what you're doing, you're afraid because you have that blockage of, okay, I cannot do that because my brain just not working that way. But if you train that, and if you put him in a position where, okay, I can do that, repetition, that's what it is. So it was interesting.
Look, you're doing exactly what we promote, is that if you're going to wire the brain differently to be a better decision maker, you got to do it in the context of hockey. So you can do it off ice, right? Because ice time is hard to come by sometimes. But you got to eventually get it to the ice. You got to engage the body in the movements it's got to make. You got to engage the visual demands, the way that they're engaged on the ice, and you got to link what you see to what you rapidly just process and decide to what you do. And so all of our training is about unlocking your creativity, giving you concepts so that you can apply that. And I think we come back after the summer. And
absolutely. I'd love that. I'd love to talk about things. And
we'll bring a whiteboard in here. And
it just, you know, I want to, like, I want to help everyone who wants to be helped. Like, this is how, my, business is working. And like, if you don't want to be like, again, when we're talking about you take the test, but if you're don't really care about really getting better, I don't care if your test is the best, you will never reach your potential, right? So like, if you're going to take something, use it. And if you want to use it, you're going to get better. There's nobody's going to, convince me otherwise, because I've seen it, the consistency and the work you put into it. And, you're going to get results. I don't care, who you are, or like, you don't need the best coaches. You just need to be consistent. You just need to believe in yourself and come to the practice or to wherever you go with purpose. And if you have those things, cognitive testing, physical testing, whatever it is, in your pocket as a tools, and you using them, that's where you're going to unlock a lot of potential for yourself.
A lot easier to believe in yourself when you know yourself.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And this is why I love this thing, because it just, again, it's helping, even though I'm retired, but like, I love that because it's helping me to understand myself, and it's helping me understand all the players.
That's right. All right, Ľuboš, 3 random and funny questions. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
Okay. I am an Atlanta kid. Did the Atlanta Thrashers have the best logo color scheme of any NHL team?
No.
Okay, that hurts. That was really straightforward.
I'm not. It was good, but my favorite logo in NHL still is Toronto Maple Leafs and St. Louis Blues. Yep. Even though, I played for the Blues, but like,
I knew it.
I love that, note, and like how they do it, and like how they have this. Cool. It's really, really, it's classic. Yeah. And Toronto is that's my favorite, like that leaf, and like it was. Yeah. So yeah, but Atlanta was good.
Thanks. In your many international stops, where was your favorite place that you got to live, play, and why?
Oh, there's 2 places that were my absolutely, 3. Sweden, hockey-wise, was by far the best place to play hockey and to live. The people there, it was just great experience. My wife, that she's from U.S., I know there's a lot of like wives from U.S., they don't really want to travel to Europe, and it's just because America's great. Like, I mean, who wants to give up the lifestyle? But she did, and she absolutely loved Sweden. We loved Sweden. We've been there for 7 years. It was great. Wow. Second, like another place, not second, I don't do, this was the first. There was 3 places that we absolutely loved was Switzerland. Switzerland was the country. I mean, it was beautiful, people great. It was clean. It was awesome. Everything was there. Everything was close. It was awesome. My wife loved it. And the third place was Prague. Oh, played there for 2 years. Yeah. It was the city. I'm talking about the city. So Prague, the city was unbelievable. We loved it. We always would go there, even though we were in Slovakia. We would visit. It was the best city to live, and it was like a vacation experience, because we're like, my wife and I, like, we're very big on history. We go, see places. And my favorite city in Europe is Paris, by the way. I never play there, never stay there, but it's my favorite city because a lot of history. But Switzerland, Prague, and Sweden was.
I love asking former players this question. The current state of hockey, for whatever you think of it, what's your favorite aspect of today's game, whether international or NHL, that you see?
My favorite is the speed of the game and how they're executing it, because the game is changing year after year after year after year, right? And they're changing the rules. But I think today's game is the best game to watch, the hockey game, because I'm going to tell you why. Athletes are getting stronger, they're getting faster, and they're getting all the tools, which is cognitive and to understanding where they are. So that's why the game, if you look at, it's funny sometimes when I watch my game from 1998, 2000, I'm looking at myself and I'm like, is this? And then I look at today's game, it's completely different what they do, how they do it. And then you're looking at 1980s, like it just, and you can see how the game is changing, and the speed of the game is just what gets me, and how players can process that, and how like beautiful is to watch that game. And my favorite part of the game is the overtime, because it's 3-on-3 and it's speed, and it's just like it's awesome. But for me, the speed of the game and the creativity of moving the puck, it's no more dumping the puck and then hitting and just all physical. It's just like they're playing the game. This is what really gets me in. And this is why we're here. And this is why I keep telling everyone, if there are tools to use towards your advantage, because the game is going to get only faster. Yeah. The game is going to get only, I see it because I played NHL, but I can still play, But when I have players like my son who's playing NCAA D1, at Mercyhurst, and then all of his buddies are coming back, they all play NCAA D1, and then sometimes I play the game with them. I can't keep up with them anymore, and I'm like, this is weird. And they're not even, and I'm like, and they're playing the game at the level of like the speed, and then how they I can't even keep up. Yep. So this is what, it's very interesting. And I'm trying to understand it. Because I want to help those kids, because at that speed, if you can't process it, you just can't play. Yeah. And this is a great, great tool. I'm very, very happy that I got to know you guys, because it just, for me, it was just like, oh my gosh. Yeah. This is something huge, and I'm going to use it all the time. And for parents and coaches, that's what I'm going to be approaching. And we're already, doing that. We're already working towards, getting all that testing so I can understand my team a lot better. So I'm very, very excited about that.
Yeah. Ľuboš Bartečko.
Yes.
Hey, I will just leave you with some encouraging words, because I'm a little bit down the life's journey ahead of you a little bit. I will tell you, though, there is comfort to be had in the rapid degradation of your physical skills. You do get to a point where you accept that you just are just a shell of your former self. Yes. So that's coming, where you'll accept it and it'll be all right with it.
Yeah,
but,
I agree.
That transition is miserable.
Yeah, I agree.
Man, thank you so much for joining us. 21 years of professional hockey. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Appreciate your time today. And looking forward to the summer.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me. I love talking about stuff like that, because it only helps everyone. And we're here to help everyone. So thank you so much for having me. I'd love to be back here.
No doubt. Thank you, Ľuboš. Thanks for listening to the S2 Cognition Podcast. If you like the content we're putting out, please subscribe with that plus sign at the top of your app, leave a review about the episode, and share it with a few friends. You can follow us on Twitter at S2Cognition and Instagram at S2.Cognition. If you'd like to get in touch with the program or show, please visit our website at S2Cognition.com/podcast. Thanks again for listening to the S2 Cognition Podcast. I'm your host, Harrison Hunter, signing off for now. We will talk to you soon.